First of all, I have to explain some things before I tell you about the man with the hat. I have always seen shadow people. My mom says that when I was a baby, I used to cry a lot because there was a man in the apartment we lived in. The building was old, from the 1940s, and many people had experiences in there. I remember the housekeeper had some pretty bad ones. I remember seeing shadow people, and more than once hearing them calling me. I was also terrified of my closet because it was unusually dark, at least I believed it was, but eventually it all stopped around the time when I was 8. We moved to another apartment building when I was 14. The place was built in the 60s, and we got a pretty good deal for the apartment, so we were happy to have our own place. We rented before that. I remember people used to tell us that they kept seeing a little girl inside the apartment, even when everyone knew it had been abandoned for almost 10 years. As soon as we moved in, I noticed that there was doors opening and closing on their own, shadows walking in the living room, and strange voices in the night. It all stopped after a few months, and we lived without worries for almost 4 years. I was 17 at the time when we began having problems with one of the neighbors. She was a very problematic person, who used to bully people to get what she wanted. People also said she was a witch. Anyway, this woman who accused my father and another neighbor, who was our friend, of stealing money. My dad and this other guy were the administrators of the building. I don't know if this happens in other countries, but here building administrators handle the money for all the needs of the common areas of the building, cleaning, electricity, employees, and so on. In the end, my dad and our friend were cleared because evidently the woman was lying, but she was very angry at us. It was then the man in the hat visited me. My apartment was on the floor level, just in front of the problematic neighbor's place. Between the apartments there was a small garden, and my bedroom faced her apartment. I caught her spying through the window many times, and I really disliked to know she could be watching me at any time. I kept the curtains closed always, and felt really uncomfortable because my bed was right next to the window. But since my room was really small, I could not move it elsewhere. Well, one night, I had gone to bed around 10 p.m. and was trying to sleep, but couldn't. I stirred in my bed, eyes closed, for around 2 hours. Finally, I lay in bed for around 20 more minutes, staring at the bottom of the top of the bunk. I used to sleep in a bunk bed. Then I saw him. He walked right through the window, in front of my bed, then crossed the small room and walked through the door, exiting the room. I lay frozen in my bed. I had just seen a man, around 50 years old, wearing a black/dark gray suit and hat, walk past my room. I immediately started praying to the gods. Let me also clarify that I recently converted to Wicca. After a while, I fell asleep in tears. I was soundly asleep when I was awoken by the noise of a poster falling from my wall. In those days, I was a big fan of the anime Sailor Moon, and I had a huge poster on my wall, just next to my bed. It was secure on the wall, with tape and thumbtacks so it wouldn't fall. Well, the poster fell, bringing down with it some of the stuff I had on my nightstand. I woke up truly terrified, but quickly decided it had just fallen. I got up, placed the poster back, and rearranged the fallen stuff, and went back to bed. It was no more than 2 minutes, and I was perfectly awake when, I swear, I felt something biting me between my shoulder and neck. It was really quick, and I jumped out of my bed while at the same time I turned the lights on. Evidently, I saw nothing, but I could feel that there was something there. I suppose I could have been really scared, but I was not. I was furious. I remember I felt like beating the crap out of that thing that had just bitten me, so I yelled at it. Told him, pardon my language, to get the fuck out of my house, that he was messing with someone who was not going to go down without fighting, and that if he wanted to play, well, it was on. In retrospective, I might have been reckless, but I clearly remember not feeling afraid. I knew what to do. I took some water in a glass, added salt to it, and sprinkled the whole room with the liquid. Then I smudged the place with sandalwood incense, not missing one spot. I paid special attention to the window. All the time, I kept repeating myself that the gods were with me and that they were kicking the bastard out of my house. My mom opened the door, catching me with the incense, and questioned me. I explained everything. Being the skeptic she is, she said it was just a dream, but deep in her eyes she was worried. She left and returned a few moments later with holy water, she's Catholic, and said, "Well, this might strengthen your spell. Good night." As I said, I am a Wiccan, so I really don't give much credit to holy water. Most of the time the blessing of the water in churches are damn impersonal. But I think that my mom's desire to help me and keep me safe was what strengthened my protections. I placed a glass with holy water next to a glass of consecrated water in the window. The man never came back, and I am certain I kicked his ugly butt off my house with the help of the gods. Story 2. I lived in an old building from the 60s up until 5 years ago. The building was old, and my apartment had been abandoned for 10 years until we moved in. It had lots of stories about ghost girls playing ball and weird voices heard and stuff. This happened about 8 years ago. I had moved to a bigger bedroom because my brother moved to another city for college and I took his room. across the hall where my old bedroom was. Months later, new neighbors moved into the apartment above mine. They were a family of 4, mom, dad, 2 teen boys. They were a violent family. Almost every day they screamed at each other, and there was a big deal of physical violence involved, too. Hitting, throwing objects, pushing, and so on. It was dreadful. The police were involved several times, but as usual, nothing changed. Everyone in the building was scared they might turn up dead one morning. That's how bad it was. Anyway, they had been living in the apartments above mine for around 2, maybe 3 months when one night I went to bed late. I was tired and I closed my door so my cat couldn't come in at night and wake me up. I really don't know what time it was. All I know is everything was silent and dark. In those days, I was undergoing constant episodes of sleep paralysis, so I developed my own system to stop horrible episodes before they began. I still use that method, and fortunately, after years of meditation, I haven't had an episode in at least a year. Well, that night I began hearing the horrible ringing noise that alerted me of my sleep paralysis, so I forced myself to wake up. It was very difficult, but I finally succeeded. It was around 2:30 a.m. I constantly woke up around that time, long before I even knew that in Japan the witching hour is between 2 and 3 a.m. To avoid falling asleep again, I turned on the lights and got up, so I could walk a bit in my bedroom. I grabbed a book, read for a while, and felt sleepy again around 4. I decided to give it a try. If I felt another episode coming, I'd just wake up. I went back to bed and fell asleep. A while later, I don't know how long, I woke up feeling hair in my face. It was a very uncomfortable feeling, and I assumed it was my own hair, but when I tried to grab it to move it aside, I realized it was not my hair. I must say I was not fully awake, but I wasn't asleep either. I could move, but the ringing was beginning to sound in my ears. As I said, I realized it was not my hair, because it was very messy and I wore mine in a braid, so there was no chance it was mine. I opened my eyes and there was nothing. I was too scared to even try to turn on the lights, and I instinctively began praying. I looked again, and to my dismay, in the corner, I very briefly saw a woman crouching in the ceiling. Yes, she was upside down, looking at me. Her hair was long and messy and dark, and she wore a white gown. No, I don't think about Japanese movies. She looked like a Mexican native, with a very dirty and worn cotton gown, and she was holding a baby. It looked like a baby. It was seriously scary, because I was sure it was not human. It had never been human. I don't know how I knew, I just knew. I closed my eyes but could feel her staring at me. I had never encountered something so awful, so dark. I simply do what I knew best, cast a circle. I'm a pagan, in case you wonder. I called the elementals. I called the gods. I begged them to help me keep that thing away. The damn thing didn't leave. I prayed harder, visualizing the bubble of golden energy around me grow bigger. I was absolutely terrified. And then, when I was beginning to think that the horrible thing was going to be my new roommate, I felt kitty paws walking in my bed. The cat lied down next to me, and I felt its warm weight cuddle. I could almost feel the woman growl, angry, and she vanished, just like that. I thought, well, my cat saved me. But then I remembered that I closed my door and there was no way my cat was with me. I closed my eyes tight, still terrified, but the truth is that warm, cuddly presence was actually comforting. I finally fell asleep after a while. Next morning, my door was closed and there was no cat inside my room. I asked my parents if they had opened my door after I went to bed, and both of them said that they hadn't. Curious thing is that from that day on, I constantly saw a cat-shaped shadow in the living room. I can, sometimes, see how spirits look like. I know how that woman looked like, for example. I know it was a black and very big cat. It liked to sit on the top of the back of the grandfather chair we had. It played with my cat, and I think my cat actually liked him very much. The weird, horrible woman never appeared again, but I think she was called by the violence and hatred my neighbors generated. I'm not sure if it was a demon, a poltergeist, or negative energy that I interpreted as a woman. All I know is that the activity in the house, voices, doors opening and closing, shadow people, stopped, except for the cat. I used to thank him for his help almost every day, and left him cat food and toys sometimes. I never got a name from him, and never tried to give him one. Even my mom, the skeptic, who I think is just a witch in denial, admitted seeing the cat once in a while. One day, the black kitty just left. I think his job was done. I am convinced that the cat was some sort of guardian that the gods sent us to protect us from that inhuman horror. I have my own ideas on why it came to me as a cat, and I am sure that, if I need him again, all I have to do is call. So, this is my story. I know how crazy it sounds. It's up to you if you believe it or not. But all I can say is that it was real. Too real. I still feel nervous when I remember that evil thing because I genuinely felt in danger, and I pray to all the gods I never encounter something like that again. Story 3. This is the third and final, so far, of my horrible experiences. 5 years ago, we sold the apartment we lived in. We moved to my aunt's house while we finished building our new home. My aunt's house belonged to my grandmother, and it was built around the 50s in an area that used to be completely deserted before. The area was very different to where I used to live. I really didn't like it much, but my aunt was kind by letting us stay with her in the meantime. The house had reports of activity, but it was the usual stuff. We're a weird family. My aunt used to be very good in reading Spanish cards. My mom had premonitory dreams. A cousin of mine is sort of a medium, and in general, all of my aunts and female cousins see shadows on a regular basis. Nothing nasty or dangerous. So at the time, things were going badly for everyone. I was undergoing a lot of job-related stress that caused me migraines. My parents were having constant money arguments, and my aunt was going through some sad personal stuff. So evidently, the atmosphere was absolutely dreadful. We all tried our best to avoid trouble, but it was a bit hard. One of those nights, I was asleep, and suddenly, I began hearing the horrible ringing noise that alerts me of my sleep paralysis. I knew I was just about to have an episode, and I tried to wake up. It was hard, and when I did wake up, I moved to lie on my left side, but the ringing came back. I tried to wake up again, but I only managed to move a bit. Suddenly, I felt something sit next to me, and I thought the only person that would sit next to me is my mom. But why the hell would she do that in the middle of the night? It made no sense. I moved again, slightly, and woke up a little more, but the ringing didn't go away. I then felt this person lie down next to me. She, it felt female, hugged me and began caressing my hair very softly, and I was like, what the hell? I couldn't move anymore, and the ringing in my ears was louder. I got angry. Whoever it was, it had no right to invade my personal space like that, and I formulated in my mind, very clearly, go away, don't touch me. It was then things became weirder. She held me tighter, and her touch became possessive. I got the impression she whispered something like, my girl. I concentrated again, thinking, go away, you are not my mom and you have no right to touch me. I am not your daughter. The thing got angry and didn't seem to want to leave. I felt her nails in my arms, and I began to freak out. I got the sensation that if I didn't defend myself, I was going to be stuck with her forever. So I began repeating in my mind something I really can't remember, but I'm sure it was some sort of prayer. I felt this thing release me, angry. I kept repeating the same words over and over again, and the thing finally left. I have no idea what it was. My grandma had died a few years ago, and her wake was held in this house, but it didn't feel like her. No one died there, and the thing was not part of the inhabitants of the house. It just came in and left after I made clear I was not her daughter. Of my 3 really horrifying experiences, I don't know which one was the worst. All I can say is that I know the 3 things were not human, and that's why it was so scary. I really never want to encounter crap like that ever again, but at least I think I'm a bit more prepared now than back then. Fortunately, I have had only 3 horrible experiences. The rest of them are quite light compared to these, and some of them are even humorous. Hello everyone, I just want to say thank you for watching. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed this story, and subscribe if you want to hear more in the future. Click the bell icon in order to be alerted when I have more stories to tell, and until then, don't look at the sleep paralysis demon.